A woman named Alia is married to someone who loves her, but after a while, he starts beating and insulting her. And no one believes her when she is complaining, even her family. After this, Alia decides to do something, but it's clear that there is a spirit in the desert who hears her thoughts, and also finds a solution for her. Alia then sets fire to her husband who was beating her, but a strange man appears, whose name is Saad, and she gives him a ring, called Saba. Then, Saad collects the dust from the burnt corpse and puts them in a box. After that, we are introduced to a man named Tark, who works as a computer engineer, and he is searching for his daughter in the house, but doesn't find her. He then sees her sitting with her mother and playing together. When he enters, his wife tells him that they had dinner without him because he was very late at work. After that, her daughter asks her about the reason that makes her father come home late. But Tarek answers and says that this is because he works a lot. Then, she asks him if he works more than her mother. So, Tarek tells her that he doesn't work more than her mother, but he has to stay until the last minute in the company, because he works as a computer engineer. And she asks her mother about his father's job definition. Tarek gets nervous because his daughter ignores him, and asks her why she didn't ask him this question. But she tells him that her mother knows everything. Then, her mother asks if she did her homework. Tarek gets annoyed, because they don't care about what he says and enters his room. On the same night, he keeps looking at his neighbors, while they are dancing with each other. And he is happy. The next day, Tarek goes to work, and meets a woman in the elevator. She has a new job with them, and her name is Salma. But Tarek is still looking at her, because she is beautiful. Then, Tarek goes to his office. Meanwhile, his wife calls him, asking him if he will come back for dinner. But he says he'll be late today, and walks out of the office. At this time, he sees his manager touching Salma on the pretext that he teaches her how to work. But Salma leaves the office and walks away. Then, Tarek goes to her, but sees that she is smoking. So, he takes a cigarette and smokes with her. He says that he doesn't smoke at all, and that he goes to her because he heard a voice. But Salma doesn't care. So, he asks her about work, and she says it's not good. Then, Tarek warns her of the manager, and tells her that he is a harasser. But Salma tells him that she knows that, and asks him not to worry about her. Then, he sees her leaving the office and walking away, and he knows from his colleague that Salma resigned. After that, he enters her office and finds a strange bag. He takes it and goes to his office. When he opens the bag, he finds an iPad, and an advertisement for a resort that offers him a different life, an ideal partner. Also, marriage for a 24-hour in complete secrecy. Tarek thinks about it and decides to try this resort. When he arrives at the airport, he meets someone and takes him to a resort. But Tarek gets worried, because the resort is far away in the middle of the desert. When he arrives, the receptionist welcomes him, as if he knows Tarek, then gives him the key to his room at once. After that, Tarek knows the orders, and that they will send the uniform to him for the place. But the receptionist warns Tarek to leave his room after the activities are over. Also, he tells him if he needs any service, contact them. Meantime, Tarek is surprised when he finds everyone wearing the same clothes, and having the same mark on their face. When he enters his room, he can't find a network on his phone. So, he goes outside, but he also can't find a network. At this time, a worker knocks on the door, and gives him the clothes he'll wear, telling Tarek that he can keep his privacy by wearing a mask on his face. When Tarek is getting ready, he finds someone before him. He is Saad, and asks Tarek to go with him. When Tarek goes with him, he meets the matchmaker, Alia, but she is wearing different clothes, and asks Tarek about his trip. He tells her that it's hard, so, she asks him about the place and his opinion of it, and Tarek tells her that the place is beautiful. Alia likes Tarek, and promises him that he'll find what he wanted here. At this time, a woman enters them, and Saad gives her a bag and then leaves. Meanwhile, Alia notices that Tarek is tense, so she jokes with him to break up the ice. Then, she explains more about the place, and that the marriage here depends on sharing between the two partners. Also, he has to attend the weddings of his colleagues who are in the resort, and they also will attend his wedding. Tarek agrees, and takes a bag from Saad, which contains Saba's ring, and Alia asks him to wear it. After that, Tarek thanks her for the gift, and asks her if he will see the girl who is going to marry him. So, she tells him to take a moment and everything will happen in due time. When Tark goes to his room, he gets an invitation to a wedding party in the resort. So, he goes and sees the musicians while they are drumming, but he stays alone until he sees a man and goes to sit with him. Then, the man asks him if it's the first time for him to come, and Tark tells him yes. After that, Tark asks him if he knows anything about the place's system, but the man tells him that no one knows the system, and this is the secret of the beauty of the experience. He then tells Tark that he'll spend his best days in the resort. Also, he'll forget his old life, but Tark asks him what makes him sure. The man says that because all of his friends who visited the place, none of them came back. But after this, Tark becomes worried. Then, the bride arrives while riding a camel, and when the marriage ends, Alia stands on the mountain among a group of girls, of which Salma is. Later, Tark wakes up after he hears the sound of screaming, and when he goes out, he sees the bride whose wedding was yesterday, walking with the guards. He keeps watching them until a guard sees him asking him to get into his room quickly. So, Tark says that he heard a sound, and that is why he went out. But the guard tells him that everything is under control. Then, Tark goes back to his room, but on the way, he hears a voice crying, and someone is calling for Salma. Tark enters there, and meets an old man. The man asks him if he knows where Salma is, and Tark tells him that he will ask about her. But the man refuses, because he asked about her before and didn't find her. Tark then knows that she has been absent for 2 days. So, he asks the man about his relationship with Salma. The man tells him that she is his daughter, and she tells him that there was one of her colleagues wanted to propose to her, so she wanted him to meet him. After that, the man asks Tark to find his daughter, but he notices Saba's ring with Tark, and asks him about it. Tark tells him that they gave him it when he arrived at the resort. Then, Salma's father asks him to go out and look for his daughter without anyone noticing. And when he shows the ring to the guards, they let him go out. Tark walks in the desert until he reaches a road surrounded by mud houses, but finds someone walking before him with a flashlight. Tark gets scared and runs until he reaches the well that Salma's father told him about. There, he notices that this person is actually a little girl. She asks him what he is looking for, and if he is looking for Salma. Tark asks her if she knows her, and the girl tells him that she knows her, but she is thirsty and wants him to give her water. Then, Tark asks about the reason that makes her not filling the cup of water by herself, but she tells him that he knows everything. At the same time, Tark gives her the cup, but when she takes it, she puts her finger in it, and it suddenly turns into blood, and she walks away. Meanwhile, Tark goes after her, and finds her sitting with an old man and woman, talking about Alia, but they keep talking about her repeatedly, and Tark is terrified and runs. He then is shocked when sees someone who looks like himself, holding a flashlight and runs after him. But he wakes up from his dream, and finds himself in his old house. Tark feels safe when he sees his daughter and wife, then goes out to the roof to look at his neighbors again, but gets shocked when he sees his wife in the neighbor's apartment and she looks at him. He then wakes up, and finds himself in the resort. On top of that, Tark sees that the ring stuck on his finger, and can't take it off. The next day, Tark goes to the man who met him in the wedding, and tells Tark that this place is very weird, and he went out last night because he heard his voice. But the man saw the matchmaker, and she looked at him in a frightening way. Then, he went back to his room and slept, but he had many strange nightmares, and he couldn't sleep after that. Meanwhile, the man tells Tark that his marriage is today, and after that, he'll leave the place and run away. But Tark can't wait until tomorrow, and he has to walk now. The man then asks what they are supposed to do, and Tark tells him that they should go back to their home. But the man refuses because he wants to attend his wedding, and he wants to see the girl he is going to marry. Then, Tark asks him if he is sure that she is already there, but the man says nothing. Tark continues and says that the place where they are in danger, and they have to escape ASAP. So, they agree to meet at the reception in an hour. And Tark notices that the man's finger is swollen too because of the ring. But when he asks him about what happened, the man says that this place is so weird, and then leaves. After an hour, Tark waits for him at the reception, but he is late. So Tark decides to go to his room. He is shocked when sees that the man changed his opinion, and wants to stay with his new bride. Then, he tells Tark that he understands him wrong, and he meant to just threaten the officials in the resort to get the girl he is going to marry. Meantime, Tark is confused and stays alone in the restaurant. He wants to hold the knife and cut off his finger, but he doesn't do that at the last moment. After a little, he decides to walk away and tells the receptionist that he wants to leave the place quickly. Then, the receptionist tells him that the car will be at his service in a few minutes. But when Tark enters the car, Saad is the driver, and electrifies Tark until he faints. When he wakes up, he finds himself in the marriage of the man, and after the marriage ends, Tark decides to go into hiding. He kidnaps one of the musicians, and puts on his clothes, then goes with the rest of the musicians to the mountain, and hides among them. There, he sees a bride standing far away and his friend gets close to her. But suddenly, the guards set fire to the man. Tark feels terrified, and starts crying. On the other hand, Alia is watching what is happening. She then looks at Salma, who is upset about what happened. Meanwhile, a man appears, who looks exactly like Tark's friend, but he has the same mark that all the men have on their faces there. While Tark feels sad about what is happening, a man electrifies him until he faints. This man is Salma's father, whom Tark dreamed of before. And when Tark wakes up, he finds himself in a room with Alia. He tells her that he wants to go home, and doesn't want anything else. But Alia asks him to be patient, and that he will take what will make him happy. Then, she tells him to wait a few minutes and walks away. Meantime, Salma enters the room. He insults her and tells her that she is cursed. But she slaps him and accuses him of being stupid, then asks him what he is doing here in the resort. Tark tells her that he came for her, but now he hates her. Salma then explains that she left the bag for her manager, who was harassing her, and he is supposed to be here instead of Tark. But Tark who took the bag. He tells her that she had ruined his life, but Salma laughs and says that he had no life at all. Then, Tark goes back to his room and remains unconscious. And Alia asks Salma why she has changed recently. Salma tells her that she feels so upset, and that it is the first time she feels it. But Alia tells her that from a long time ago she was like her, and that at that time, she had to pretend that she was someone other than herself. But Salma asks her why they do that. Alia tells her that they were forced to be in this situation. Salma then says that she knows that she is in pain, but they could have chosen happiness. Alia laughs loudly at her, and tells her that happiness is a lie, and asks her not to believe it. After that, Salma tells her that she believes in her idea, but she can no longer bear the lack of mercy in the resort. So, Alia asks her to look at her hand, which shows that it is burnt. She then asks Salma if this is the meaning of mercy, and where is the mercy was when they did this to us. After a little, Salma asks her if they will keep making men their slaves, and asks her about their wives and families who are waiting for them to return. But Alia tells her that when they come back, they'll do the same again. Salma tells her that she feels sorry for her, and that there is a spirit in the desert who has a different opinion. She then leaves the office. After a little, Salma is wearing the clothes of a matchmaker, and she enters Tark's room, then puts off a ring from his hand. His finger becomes normal. Suddenly, there is a fire at Alia's office. Then, she sits in the same place that Tark used to dream about. But Saad stays with her to serve her, and Salma sends a message to Alia, asking her not to be upset with her. Then informs her that her teachings are still there, but they will be taught in a different way. And with time, she will understand what she did and thank her for it. Salma then decides to free all the men in the place, and let them go back to their homes. After a while, Tark returns home, and finds his wife and daughter playing together. He sits next to them and asks if he can play with them. Thanks for watching, take care, and see you in the next video. Big dog status, I'm a big dog, I pull up on the block,